Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to a new series of critical thinking. Now obviously critical thinking is as it says on the tin. We're going to try and equip you guys with the necessary and appropriate tools to understand things, and more specifically understand things philosophically in the context of discourse, in the context of discussions and debates that we have around things like purpose. And so what we're going to start with, inshallah, is an introductory lesson, which hopefully will aim to lay some foundations, some basic foundations on knowledge itself. Now, as you can see, if you can see behind me, what we're doing today is simply to know how knowledge is acquired, to understand the different philosophical perspectives on knowledge, and to be able to make a judgment on epistemology. These are the three learning objectives. So by the end of this, we should know what epistemology is. That is a key word that we'll, inshallah, cover. But also we should have a judgment that we're able to make on epistemology. We're here joined with the one and only, the man himself, the one that you all know, Brother Haydar. Brother Haydar is, inshallah, one of our people, one of the team, one of the people here at Salam. He really is someone that's not seen that much, but he does a lot for the organisation. And obviously we have Brother Ali as well. Some of you might know him from his foolish videos on YouTube. Now, let's get started with some inquiry questions, inshallah. And this is going to be an interactive session. And so we're going to ask a lot of questions, and I want you guys to think about what we're talking about rather than me just giving you all the information. Let's start with a very introductory question. What is knowledge?
Knowledge.
Yes.
Information. Knowledge is information.
That's a very good answer. In fact, it's a dictionary definition. If you go on Oxford Dictionary, they'll say knowledge is information, it's facts, it's skills acquired. You know, it's how we use the word. Yeah. In terms of common day usage. Is there anything else you'd add to that, Ali?
Knowing.
So
knowing is a part of knowing.
That's correct. It's very good. It's true. You know, excellent. I would say to you.
When we have teachers like you, we know good things.
Oh, that's very true.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
And this is a more fundamental question. I'm going to actually make this a question of concentration. I actually want you to think about this, right? I want you to really think about this, and I want the people at home to think about this question as well. Yeah. How do we get to know of something? In other words, how do we acquire knowledge, right? So this is the question, how do we know? Before you answer that question, what I'd like you to do is just spend 1 minute by yourselves, you know, writing down some of the ways in which you think you come to know things. So just spend a minute, maybe it's more than one way, maybe it's one way, whatever it may be, just put down what you think is the correct answer for that, and we'll come back and feedback. Haydar, let's start with you, Haydar. So how do we know things?
Okay, so there are two types of knowledge.
Okay.
There's exoteric knowledge,
Okay, very good.
which is knowledge from the outside. So knowledge you can gain from other people, from other resources. And there's enteric knowledge, which is knowledge from inside.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Say that again. There's
Exoteric.
how do you spell that?
EXO.
EXO.
TE.
TE.
RIC.
RIC.
Yes.
Exoteric knowledge, yeah.
And enteric. EN and the rest of the same.
I don't enter it.
Yeah.
So
Okay, let's not get caught up on the words. We'll come to those. What I'm trying to, very good, I mean, it's a very good answer, very, very good, thank you very much. What I'm trying to avoid in this series, especially in the introductory lessons, is I'm trying to grade my language as much as possible so everyone can be included. But, mashallah, some very good keywords there which we can use. We will build up to using more, maybe complex terminologies in the course of this lesson. But let's focus on what you've said. So, knowledge gained from other places. Okay, can you expound on that a little bit?
So, I did a degree in biology,
Okay.
and I had to learn about the physical world from the biological view. So, to gain this knowledge, I had to read books relating to the topic.
Okay.
So, books would be a place where you gain knowledge from.
Okay, and how do you, very simply, how do you actually read books? How does that work?
You use your eyes
Okay, yeah,
to
excellent.
scan the words.
Right.
Okay.
You interpret the words.
Okay. Ali,
So that's what I was going to say. Because when you asked the question, I was a bit confused what you meant by it.
Okay.
So if you meant how do we acquire it, I was going to say our 5 senses.
Perfect. Excellent.
Okay.
That's a good answer, yeah?
Alright.
So please put that down if you don't have it already, yeah?
Okay. So our 5 senses, yeah.
Okay.
Which shall we go through it?
No. People know what the 5 senses are. That's good. That's a very good answer. Do you want to add to that? Anything else? Is there any other way you can get knowledge?
No, that's
5 senses.
5 senses, and that's obviously limited, but yeah.
Okay, excellent. But you made a point. You said there were 2 ways, which is what, as we're going to find out, Bertrand Russell himself in the Problems of Philosophies, in a book that we're using that kind of book, by the way. I haven't mentioned this already, guys. But we're using Bertrand Russell's Problems of Philosophies.
Okay.
It's a book which very small, but very, very important actually in the field of epistemology. Yeah. So it's a book called The Problems of Philosophy, where our lessons are being kind of scheduled in accordance with the chapters of that book. But it's not rigid in the sense that we're not going to go outside and talk about things. And the reason why I've chosen that particular book is because you'll find that most universities that do things like philosophy degrees, they have that as the acquired reading, yeah? And for good reason. Like, for example, Oxford University, for its PPE degree, they don't allow you to do that degree unless you have, well, they do allow you, but I mean, they recommend before you actually get started with the degree that you read that book. And it's because it gives you that foundation that you need, right? Okay. So the 2 things that you mentioned is very important because actually it's mentioned in his introductory chapter, right? So 5 senses is good, yeah? So it's kind of like the outside, yeah? Making it very simple. But you also said knowledge from within. So could you expound on that one, please?
So this could be things that you learn about yourself and things that you learn about other people through interacting with them.
There's a difference, because when you're saying learning within yourself, are you saying something that you discover or something that's innate that you already know?
It could be both.
Okay.
So give us an example of that, if it could be both. Give me an example of something which you already know.
So your personality, like what things annoy you. So I get really annoyed when, for instance, I see someone who's homeless. That's something that I've learned about myself, and it's the first time I've shared it with them.
I think that's very good. I think you're right. You're on the right tracks, but there's still some refinement we can do. Yeah, so we can hold in a little bit more and think a little bit deeper. So what is that exactly? When you feel annoyed, you use the word feel. So if we use the word feel, what are we talking about necessarily?
Emotion.
Excellent. So emotion, right? So let's say here, things from within, yeah? And some call this intuitive knowledge, yeah? Intuitive, yeah? And you can also fit within that experiential knowledge, okay?
So wisdom.
No, that's fine. Let's stick with experiential knowledge. So emotions would fit in that context of experiential knowledge because you experience emotions, don't you? You experience emotions.
Yes.
Now, if you experience emotions, it's first person. Now, if you go back to English grammar now, just to kind of get everyone on board, there are 3 kinds of person, right? Which are what? There's first person. What do you think that was?
Second person.
Second person. And what else is there?
Third person.
Third person. Okay, can you give me an example, just for those who at home not knowing what we're talking about, of something which is first person, a pronoun which is first person?
I.
I, okay. Give me an example of a second person pronoun.
You.
You, okay, good. And give me an example of a third person pronoun.
He.
Excellent. Now, if we come back to here, emotions, is it I, you, or is it he?
Definitely I.
So yeah, if it's your emotions,
Yeah.
we're talking about something which is first person. Now, this is incredibly important. And the reason why it's very, very important, especially in acquiring knowledge, yeah, is because the whole field of science, you said you're a biologist, yeah? The whole field of science, and I want you to put this down, yeah, put this down. The whole field of science is third person. In order for something to be scientific, it has to be experimented upon.
Say that again, the whole field of
Okay,
science?
the whole field of science
Yeah.
is third person. Okay, what do I mean by that? So, scientific experiments are experimented upon. They do not relate to your own
Subject experience.
experience, okay? So, science cannot tap, yeah? Cannot tap how you feel. It can't detect that. Does that make sense? How you feel is first person. Does that make sense? Okay, yeah? Question?
What if you're the scientist who's discovering?
Even if you're the scientist who's discovering, right? In any case, your experience is always first person. You say, I feel. Whereas science is always third person. You have to have an experiment. Yeah? So that's important. And we'll come to it later on. That's important. So here we've already got two things, right? And we'll stick to those two things because they're quite important. So you've got the external and you've got the internal, if you like, yeah? The external, the five senses. They're the window to the outside world, yeah? And then you have intuitive knowledge and experiential knowledge. It's more internal. Can you think of something else which is knowledge which you don't get from the five senses? That's my question. Give me examples of other kinds of knowledge which are not acquired through the five senses.
So
We said experience already, emotions.
this is relating back to the Quran and the story of Khidr.
Okay.
So Khidr, he knew how to do certain things. For instance, he made a hole in the boat. He fixed the wall, and he took care of that boy. These things. These things.
He had wisdom, and you just had wisdom as well. So is that, can we say that wisdom is knowledge that you can't take?
Yeah, I like it. Go ahead.
So these things were knowledge that weren't from the outside world. They were from within, but from.
You could argue it is from the outside world, and I'll tell you why. Because some say he was a prophet,
Okay.
and if he was a prophet, he was getting it from Wahi,
Yeah.
which is from Allah.
Okay.
So it's not from within him, but you're onto something. You're definitely onto something, yeah? So you're not wrong completely. What other knowledge is not acquired from the outside world?
I'm thinking consciousness, but I don't know what can you attain from that?
Our consciousness is not really knowledge. It's a state of being, yeah? But you're definitely right. You're definitely right in so much as consciousness cannot be experimented upon.
Yeah.
Yeah? So consciousness is first person and it's not third person. That's correct. But we're sticking on the field of knowledge, right?
So are you saying something that we gain knowledge without using our five senses?
Exactly. That's what I want you to think about. What do we know without using our five senses?
With animals, some animals are born, they haven't got any teachers around them. They haven't got their parents to teach them, and they instantly know how to survive.
Okay, so are you saying something innate?
So innate knowledge.
Yeah, innate knowledge.
So a baby suckling from the mother, that's something that it's programmed to do?
Okay, so this...
It wasn't taught.
You could argue this point. This is called instinct, yeah?
Instinct.
We can put it here.
What about...
Wait. With instincts, What I'm going to say is, I'm going to put a question mark. I'll tell you why.
Mm.
Because there is a debate among philosophers and psychologists even, called the nature versus nurture debate. Okay? Which I don't want to go into too much, but it's the idea of, is this baby really been taught, or is it something that they've gotten naturally? Yeah? That's a debate we don't want to get into, but it's something you could argue. Yeah? So I'm not going to say it's wrong. It's not completely undisputed though. Okay? Emotions are pretty much undisputed. You can't say that they're right. Instincts you could dispute. What else are we talking about here?
I can't think of anything else.
All right. Think of it this way. In order for something to be detected by the five senses, what properties must it have?
It has to be tangible,
Okay, excellent. Tangible is another way of saying what?
physical.
Excellent. So what do we know which is not physical?
Metaphysical.
Metaphysical things. Now give me an example of something we know which is metaphysical.
Dark matter.
The ghaib, maybe.
Oh, I don't know about you, man. I don't know that I
Yeah,
No, tell me. Something we know, okay,
Yeah.
which is metaphysical.
Are you talking about religiously or just
No, generally.
Yeah, like angels.
No, that's religious. Yeah.
That's what I said.
But I'm saying something no two people will disagree upon.
Consciousness.
Okay, we know consciousness exists.
Yes, and it's metaphysical.
We've talked about that. But consciousness is a state of being rather than knowing. Yeah?
Mhm.
So what do we know?
Gravity.
Gravity we look at the effect of.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, it's the same with dark matter then.
Yeah, all of those things are scientific. They're still in the tangible world. You can detect them to some extent. Yeah? Or the effect of them at least. We're saying this thing is not in the physical world at all, and it's undetectable.
Memory.
Memories, you could argue, is brain neurons. You could argue from a physicalist perspective.
Okay.
Yeah?
Love.
That goes back to emotions. You're right about that. No doubt.
But then can't you argue that's also chemicals and...
No, not really.
No, you could argue that. That's what materialists do argue. They do argue that.
Try to
yeah?
argue.
But it's a difficult argument to make, and it's definitely still first person. So either way, they can't do science on it. Okay? Go ahead.
I don't know. Metaphysical.
Okay.
Well, should we say subatomic?
Well, you're definitely veering in the right direction now. You're definitely
Support.
veering in the right direction.
What about
But
space?
Space is part of the physical world, yeah? Depends on how, because there's two schools of thought, Leibniz and Newton. But we're not going to go into that. Well, it's still part of the physical world. It's what you can observe, what you observe, what you make of what you observe.
You're asking metaphysical.
Yeah, what is metaphysical? We talked about it.
Really?
Yes, we have.
Energy?
Energy is definitely physical. It's definitely in the tangible physical world. You can detect energy for sure.
When did we talk about it?
What is it?
I'm not going to get into all these details.
Some knowledge from within.
Well, that's what kind of knowledge. That's the point. Anyone can make this a single argument. Knowledge is, we have to, yeah?
You got to give us a clue.
Okay, it's something which most of mankind, the vast majority, accept as valid. Starts with M.
Matter.
No. But the second word is, second letter is A.
Marriage.
Marriage documentary.
Come on, man. That doesn't exist. If you honest, right? That's not even in the metaphysical world. Go on. So MA.
I was going to say magic, but I think that's not going to fit into it.
Come on, guys. Look at the third now.
Mars.
Mathematics.
Oh, mathematics. Yeah. I knew it. I was testing.
Here's the question. Can maths be detected
No.
through scientific inquiry?
No. Because
No.
it's metaphysical. And every philosopher till this time, none of them has ever said that.
Excellent. Can you feel numbers?
Nope.
Can you taste numbers?
Nope.
Can you see numbers? Okay, if I write them on the board, you can see them.
Yeah, but not in that
As a
that's a symbol that
Right.
represents it. So you can't.
they're abstract concepts.
Yes.
Therefore, they're metaphysical.
Yes.
They're definitely metaphysical.
Yes. You can't
Okay,
smell it
and
and
this-
you can't hear it.
This is certainly important for what's going to follow, right? So please put this down, okay? Mathematics is knowledge from within, which is undetectable in the material world. Okay? All right, that's excellent. All right, so I think we've gotten to a very, very good start.
Yeah, and I'm really enjoying it. Just to let you know.
Oh, no problem. I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy to hear that. Now, let's go to the next question. If we know what knowledge is,
Yes.
and this is what Bertrand Russell says in his first chapter as well, okay? If we know what knowledge is, the question is, what is doubt?
The absence of knowledge.
Let's think about it for a second before we, before we answer the question, all right?
Say that again.
Can I say doubt is a lack of certainty?
Okay, very good. No problem. That's good. Yeah, it's when certainty is. Well, here's the question. That's one. Two. What?
What did you say?
A lack of certainty.
What is reasonable doubt? Think about it. Think about it. Don't give me the answer yet. Think about it. Because when you say, I mean, you hear this, people. We hear people say, I have doubts. And it's not just in a religious context. People say, we have doubts. Yeah? And it could be, I have doubts about life. I have doubts about meaning. I have doubts about my performance. I have doubts about X, about Y. Question is, what is reasonable doubt? Now, what I want you to think about, more specifically, what I want you to really think about, is when is it rational to doubt? When does it make sense to doubt something? And I'm going to give you another hint, actually. And I want you to think about this word here. Coherence. Coherence is consistency, yeah? When does it make coherent sense to doubt in something? Let's think about it.
Can you say, for example, there was, that study that was done by that guy who put some straws in there, and it was a little bit off topic, yeah? But there was a group of people who would keep choosing something, what's the word? What do you write there?
Coherent.
Coherently, they were continuously selecting that. And consistently. Yeah. And it put doubt into the other person's mind because it was thinking, okay, they all think that. So when you know something to be, like I know, for example, when an egg drops, it breaks. So when I see an egg dropping and not breaking, I'm going to think to myself, okay, there's a doubt there. It should have broke. Does that fit into that, or am I?
No, definitely. But yeah, you're making points, examples. You're giving examples of when doubt is applied, and I think you're right to give those examples. But I want you to think more fundamentally. Now think about what we've just done.
Yeah.
Because doubt relates to what?
Uncertainty.
Certainty, but something more fundamental than certainty, which we just covered. Think about the learning objective. Go back to learning objectives.
So no knowledge is.
So what's the key word in the learning objectives?
Knowledge.
Alright, so doubt and knowledge are related.
Yes.
So doubt exists when there's a lack of
knowledge.
Usually, right? Okay, so let's ask the question again, right? What is reasonable doubt?
When you have evidence to suggest that the pattern of coherence,
when there is a reasonable lack of knowledge,
might stray off the path that it's on.
Okay, so here what you're saying is a reasonable doubt is when something, for example, goes against logical principles.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What else?
When there's a reasonable lack of knowledge.
When there is a lack of full knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay, that's important. Now, it's important at this stage to think about something very closely, all right? And I want you to, I'm not going to give you too many names, but one person that you should know is this person. Put this guy's name down somewhere. René Descartes, okay?
René.
Is that Descartes?
How do you spell that?
No, his name is Descartes, right? But it's spelled like
how do you
that.
spell it? R-E-N?
It's there on the board, yeah?
So I'm just...
D-E-S-C-A-R-T-E-S, yeah?
René
Descartes, that's his name.
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry, because of the light on the thing, I'm finding hard to see.
He was a philosopher who existed in the Renaissance period. Okay, in the Renaissance period. The Renaissance period is anything between 1460 or 1490 onwards, kind of thing. But he was around the 1600s. Okay. he wrote a book called The Meditations. He was called a rationalist, okay? A rationalist. And what he did, I think he had 6 chapters in his book, 6 chapters. And in each chapter what he did was he described how he doubts certain knowledge that we take for granted. I'll give you one example of that to give you to drive the point home. He said, for example, the 5 senses. We said 5 senses was a way of making sense of the world for us to know the world, yeah? Knowledge. He said, how do I know for sure that my 5 senses are not deluding me? I want you to put this down. So how do I know for sure, this is the question he put, that I'm not delusional in my understanding of the world as a result of my 5 senses? Now, is there a way of knowing that our 5 senses are perfectly functional?
No.
Is there, and this is a better question, is there a way of proving that our 5 senses are perfectly functional?
No.
There is no way of proving that.
It's a circular.
Yeah, no, there's no way of proving it. You cannot prove that the 5 senses are perfectly functional. At the end of it, what he did is called systematic doubt. Yeah? Systematic doubt. In other words, anything he could doubt, he would reject. Okay? So Descartes, anything he would doubt, yeah, he would reject it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So far, do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah?
Yes.
Alright, so do you know what he ended up with?
Nothing.
No, let me tell you what he ended up with. And please put this down, very
So
important.
systematic, what was
Doubt. It's called systematic doubt, yeah? He ended up with something called the cogito. Now, I'll tell you what this cogito is. It's very important in philosophy.
How do you spell that?
C-O-G-I-T-O, yeah? C-O-G-I-T-O. It's very, very important in philosophy. It's one of the most popular concepts in all of philosophy. One of the most popular concepts in all of philosophy, right? He ended up with something called the cogito. What's it called?
Cogito.
Okay.
Sounds
Some say cogito. Some call it the cogito, but you know, cogito, yeah? What is the cogito? Remember, he's doubting everything. He's doubting his senses. He's doubting his faculties. He's doubting everything. After 6 chapters, he says, there's one thing I can't doubt. What do you think he said?
I just doubt.
You're definitely on the right tracks for sure. I exist, nearly there, right?
I am.
Nearly there.
It's present.
I am who I am.
He said, you're definitely on the right track. He said, famously, I think,
I think.
therefore, I am. Okay? That's very famous. One of the most famous lines of all of philosophy. He says, I think, therefore I am. Okay? He said, I think, therefore I am.
So what does that bring back to life all these 5 senses? Because it's like he's dismantling it, and then all of a sudden he's saying, actually, I think, therefore I am. And if I am, I have to believe in my 5 senses.
You know what he's doing?
What?
He's deconstructing and reconstructing.
This is exactly what Salam is about.
That's why they call him a rationalist.
Yeah.
Because he rationally broke it all down, and then he's building it up from the
So after did he start trusting his 5 senses?
Yes, afterwards he starts
Okay.
trusting everything.
He
He even believes in God.
So he came back to his senses, basically.
But he said, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Therefore, I am. Now, to be fair, some philosophers like Nietzsche, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but Nietzsche, it's a very difficult word to spell, Nitzshe. He said, actually, he criticized this. He said, I presupposes the existence of yourself anyways.
Yeah.
So he by the way, it's not just Nietzsche, it's many people that said
so science is what I'm problem with that.
No,
Because
it's
it's
first
like
you say
first
I think.
person. It's in the first
Yeah,
person.
why do you presuppose an existence?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
So, do you know what you could refine this as? And this is just my little thing. Thought, therefore existence, yeah?
Yeah.
That's if you peel away at everything. If you peel away at everything, this is what ends up being identifiable, yeah? From a rationalist perspective. But what have we done in doing so? What has René Descartes done in doing so? He has shown us that everything can be reasonably doubted. Okay, this is quite profound. René Descartes has shown us through his experiment that you can reasonably doubt, you can make a cogent and coherent and consistent case about the existence of everything, except for thought itself. That's where he stopped. Okay? So, doubts are a part of the world, and you can cast doubt to anything or anyone. Now, this is going to become very relevant when we talk about atheism. Because we say we doubt God exists, we doubt this and we doubt that. Well, wait, hold on. You could doubt anything. We could do a systematic doubt experiment right here and right now. And if I'm convincing enough, I can make you doubt your 5 senses, right? And we're going to find out why these methods are important. Yeah, of course.
So this is obviously knowledge from within. That he
Yes.
knowledge from within.
Yes.
So can't we counter him by bringing in knowledge from outside? So if, for instance, for the 5 senses, if we have like a vote against amongst everybody.
Yeah, he would say that look, the five senses are already in question. So you can't, any knowledge you get from outside is not trustworthy.
Yeah. So for example, you're saying, okay, let's use the pen. He's saying, I already doubt the pen. How are you using the pen when I doubt it itself?
Yeah.
The tool that you're using is in question, let alone using it.
Perfect. Now, I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm going to move on to something important, okay?
So then
any questions? Yeah, go on.
So then that completely dispels the point of evidence.
Yeah.
No, but then the question now would be, what is evidence?
Yeah.
And what is the evidence which we accept in order to come to conclusions or certainty? Because if we're saying that the evidence has to prove something to a degree of 100% and there is no leap of faith anywhere, then we have a right to reasonably doubt our own existence. We do have a right to do that. So what I'm saying is that, and this is important, almost everything requires a leap of faith. This is the point I'm making. Let me say this one more time. Almost
Is this your statement, yeah?
Yeah, it's me. Almost everything, and potentially from a rationalist perspective, what would we take out from that? What would be the notable exception from that? Thought. Because thought is there. Whether you like it or not, the fact that we're thinking, we might not be able to ascribe it to our first person selves, but it exists no matter what, yeah? So almost everything requires a leap of faith. Almost everything requires a leap of faith. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, the ones who believe in the unseen. Allah, He means the unseen that relates to the religious discourse. Heaven, hell, all of these things. But wallahi, in another way, everyone believes in the unseen. And everyone believes in something they have not seen. And everyone is required to have faith. It's not a matter of faith. It's a matter of what you have faith on. What you have faith in, even. Yeah? So everyone has faith in something they don't see.
Yeah.
But it's not a matter of having faith in something you don't see. It's a matter of what you have faith in. Yeah? And why. So this is really bringing it down to the lowest common multiple, okay? We're going to move on to...
so that's interesting, just to emphasize on that topic, yeah? So you're basically, in a nutshell, what you're saying is, so for somebody to come and say, hey, you Muslim, look at you, you believe in angels, ha ha ha. You're actually basically saying the last is on you because you're doing exactly the same thing with something that is not religious maybe, but something that is metaphysical.
Excellent.
And you're actually laughing at yourself.
Excellent.
Because you carry the same thing, it's just we believe In the
Excellent. So let's use that example and let's make it into a scientific example. You used the word in the beginning of this lesson because I think you made a good point there. So you want to just spend maybe 2 minutes expanding on that point. Okay. Let's talk about the religious discourse, the discussion we have, the debate that we have. Okay. People will say that. So someone, let me just pretend to be an atheist for a second. Say, look.
Can we call you Mark?
No, because Mark is it's a biblical name.
How about?
But the Christians have a faith that it wasn't just a pen name, although we know that it was.
How about Timothy?
Timothy's fine. Okay, let's move it. Let's say, for example, if I say exactly the question you put to me. Okay, angels. Yeah, angels. How can you believe in the existence of angels? Isn't that hocus pocus? Isn't that mythology? What's your response?
I would say, for example, personally, I'd say you believe in something that's metaphysical as well.
Give me an example.
So I would say the consciousness. Our person is the consciousness.
Consciousness is good. So consciousness is experiential though. Can you experience angels?
No, but then again, you're using your.
So we've not used any knowledge.
Okay. Maths.
Mathematics, we once again we can see it, not in a physical sense. Not in a physical sense. Good. Okay. Yeah, I saw the face. Yeah, you know because we've been through it, right? You know.
I've learned this. You can't do it.
No. So, but we can kind of experiment with it, right? It's still intuitive knowledge, whereas angels are not intuitive knowledge.
Yeah.
So what are you going to come to with now? You used it in the beginning of the session. Something about the atom.
Matter.
Something below the atom. What's it called?
Subatomic.
Subatomic atoms.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting field. I don't want to go into too much detail, okay? So you remember the discussion you had with one of the people in the park, yeah?
Yes.
Alright, so...
Double split experiment.
The double split experiment. What do you remember about the double split experiment?
So basically what they do is they fire particles through this double slit experiment.
Yes.
So basically...
double split experiment.
Yeah. Split or slit?
Oh, is it? I don't know. Slit. It slits. Yeah, it slits.
So basically they fire these particles through there.
Yeah.
And what they've noticed is that whenever they observe it, so they put something there, monitor, to observe it.
Yeah.
Whenever it's been, whenever it's been observed, it acts like a wave.
Yes.
And when it's not been observed, it acts like a particle.
Okay, good. So what does that suggest?
They suggested, this is what they came up with, by the way, that it has a will and it's making decisions.
Yeah. Okay, that's speculation.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But we're asking the question.
Yeah. It's
why have they come to that conclusion?
Because they have no other.
Exactly. Because is it working in a logical way?
Nope.
This is important.
Yeah.
Listen carefully. Put it down, yeah? Yes. Now, we're not going to become quantum physicists overnight. Yeah? But this is one principle you need to learn. Okay? Quantum physics defy the laws of logic. So, for example, the fact that something can only be in one place at one time, for example, yeah? Or many different laws, like the double slit experiment, or whatever it may be, yeah? They defy the laws of logic, the law of contradiction, the law of this, the law of that. It may defy it. So the way in which things work on a quantum level are illogical. On a macro level. They're illogical. We don't understand them. Yes.
But then, are we not assuming that the logic we have is universal?
Yes, we are assuming that.
Okay.
Yeah, if we assume that the logic we have, the formal laws of logic that we have, is universal, then we come to this problem of how comes they defy the law of logic?
Yes.
Okay, so what's important about this? How would you use this in your angel discussion?
That, for example...
So you ask him the question. Ask me a question about quantum physics first. Do you believe in?
Do you believe in quantum physics?
Okay, I believe in quantum physics, yeah.
Okay, do you realize that it defies our basic logic?
Okay, so what's important about that? Why is that relevant?
It's important because the thing is, it's the same argument that you're using against me when it comes to the issue of angels.
Perfect. Yeah? Excellent. The only difference, there's actually only one difference. The only difference is that with angels, we're using religious language. Yeah. Whereas with subatomic particles, we're using scientific language. Yeah. But in both cases, we can't see what we're talking about, and we don't know why it's acting the way it's acting. And it's metaphysical. And it's metaphysical, okay? Okay. I'm going to put here schools of thought. Okay? Just like in anything, philosophy has schools of thought. Okay? So, there are three major schools of thought when it comes to understanding the reality around us, or in terms of acquiring knowledge. Yeah, one of them is called materialism, and this is also called physicalism. The other one is called dualism, which, by the way, Descartes, who we mentioned, he was a dualist. Okay, most philosophers probably fit in this category of dualist. Okay, and the third one is idealist. So we've got three schools of thought. We've got materialism, also called physicalism, dualism, and idealism. I should make this clear. Okay. These are three schools of thought. Now, I'm going to quickly go over these, okay, with you guys, and explain them to you, alright? Materialists.
Sorry, what was the third one?
Idealists.
Idealists.
So it's like ideal and then, or idealism is the name of the school, okay? Okay, yeah. So you've got three schools of thought. Materialists believe in the following. They believe that the five senses are the ultimate way of understanding the world, yeah? Question.
Okay, so as Muslims, we believe that Nabi Musa alayhi salam split the sea in half. And this was witnessed by the children of Israel through their five senses. So, if we don't experience this kind of event, then we're likely to doubt that this occurred.
No, we're not saying that by the way, I'm not making a religious statement here, I'm just giving you we'll come to this point, yeah? But five senses are the ultimate way of understanding the world. And they go further than that. They would say anything untangible is meaningless. This formulation was put by famously by many people, including this guy called A.J. Ayer in this country, who wrote a book in 1933 called Logic, Truth and Language. Okay? Logic, Truth and Language. Now, attached to this, he was something called a positivist, okay? And there are other people called positivists, which they are empiricists. Now, there are many keywords here, so let's try and break them up, okay? Materialists are people who believe in what?
We use our five senses.
So anything that is not from the five senses is?
Meaningless.
Okay. A positivist, I'm not going to define it now, okay? But it's usually someone who believes in a principle called the verification principle, okay? So I'm going to put this down. Now, the verification principle states that if it cannot be verified scientifically, it's meaningless.
Who says this?
So, positivists say that?
No, but you said you gave three here: materialism, dualism, and idealism.
We're just with materialists now, yeah?
Oh, so materialism?
Yeah, we're on materialists.
So there's another branch called positivism?
Yeah, so this is all underneath materialists.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So materialists, you can't really be a positivist, unless you're a materialist.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay?
So positivist.
And physicalism is the same as this. So they believed in the verification principle. So anything which cannot be verified scientifically, yeah, it's meaningless.
So that's what positivists say.
Yes.
Why do you use positive? What's the link?
I don't know.
Okay.
To be honest,
okay.
I don't know why they call it.
If you don't use science as a means.
Yeah. If you cannot verify it physically, yeah, They say it's meaningless.
What about the past?
Perfect. Excellent.
So if you can't verify it with first person experience, it's meaningless. Is that what they're saying?
They didn't say anything about experience. They just said if you can't verify it scientifically, it's meaningless. So what did you ask?
What about the past?
Okay, what about the past? How can you
Your great-great-grandparents.
How can you prove the past exists? What else is problematic about this view? What other things can we not
So
prove?
for example, the Big Bang Theory.
Okay, no, it's not the Big Bang
Evolution.
Theory. You could say the past, like you said, historical events, But there's something more glaringly obvious, which we actually talked about in the beginning of the session. Mathematics.
Yes.
Mathematics.
Forget in the past. You can't do it now.
You can't even verify mathematics.
So then it's a contradictory.
So basically, they have to go back to the Stone Ages and just live like that because they can't use maths.
Well, they wouldn't say they can't use maths. They can't verify it.
Yeah, but so then they're saying it's meaningless. How could you use something meaningless to?
Yeah, it's meaningless.
Then why would
do
you
you know
use it?
Do you know what else is meaningless? Then? Ethics, morals. You know why? Because it's unverifiable.
Yeah, exactly.
Ethics and morals are. So put this down, please. For positivists, ethics, history, or the past even, mathematics. What else have we got? We've got the scientific method itself, because the scientific method is a step-by-step method which is metaphysical. It's nothing to do with science.
Yeah. So what if you're a positivist that's conformed to like a messed up society that does messed up things?
That's the thing. Historically, what happened is in 1920s and 30s, very important history, and I want you to remember this, In the 1920s and 30s, let's hope this works. In the 1920s and 30s, let's put this down. 1920s and 30s, there were two very important philosophical circles, okay? One of them was called the Vienna Circle. The Vienna Circle, because it was in Vienna. And the other one was called the Berlin Circle. They were circles, like we have like a little circle here. The only difference was, obviously, they had major philosophers, great minds, and they were all positivists.
So what was it? Vienna?
Vienna Circle. It was a halakha, They used to go and they used to meet each other, and they used to debate. But they used to be united in that they were positivists.
Okay.
So positivism became very strong. In 1920s and 30s. And you know why it was so popular? One of the reasons, socially, is because it denied all of metaphysics. It denied metaphysics. Which means, by necessity, it had to deny what? God. And not only God, it denied morality and ethics and
Maths.
and religion. So they thought they found the missing puzzle. Seriously, this was in philosophy. They thought they had found a way to do away with God and consider him meaningless, non-commonsensical, irrational. But then, in the 40s and 50s and 60s, people were asking the questions: How can you verify the past? How can you verify mathematics? How can you verify this? How can you verify ethics? How can you verify morality? They became bombarded with these questions. And they quickly realized they could not answer those questions. And they tried to change verificationism, this whole idea, into weak and strong verificationism. That's what Aya did in his book. He had weak and strong verification. But in reality, you could argue that verificationism was killed off as a philosophical concept. It's very rarely that in philosophy, that concepts are killed off. People just kind of put them into the dustbin of tried ideas. And this is what happened. So this idea of verificationism is still now in the dustbin, of tried ideas, yet materialism is a very strong school of thought. So materialism, some people say that everything that exists is all that we have. But despite that fact, positivism, which is, remember we said it's like a sub-branch, that's gone now. It's weak, it's dead. No one argues like that, no more.
So with the materialist thought pattern, if something illogical comes to you, and it falls under if everything that exists is what we believe in.
Yes.
What if what if an angel comes to you? Is that something you believe, or?
Yeah, they'd say that becomes physical now, isn't it?
So
but it depends on how
so
they.
How can you brush something off that you haven't experienced?
No, but
Their experience for them is a problem, right?
Yeah.
First person experience for materialists is a big problem because they can't explain it. They try and explain it through neurology, which we'll come to later in the lessons. But it's a very, very, very big problem, okay? So now you have to identify, if you're speaking to an atheist, now let's bring it back to discourse, religious discourse. If you're speaking to an atheist, you must identify quickly if that atheist is a materialist or not. Because if you identify that that atheist is a materialist, you're going to start bombarding them with questions they will have no answer for. Do you know how I know they'll have no answer? Because for hundreds of years, no philosopher has ever had an answer. So it's very unlikely, if not impossible, for that person to have any convincing, truthful, meaningful answer at that point. So as soon as they say, no, we don't believe in anything except for that which is extrapolated from the five senses, what would you say to them? What about what?
What about angels? What about God?
No, forget about God and angels. They say we don't believe in God and angels. They're the atheists.
Okay, what about maths?
Mathematics.
What about metaphysics?
Metaphysics.
Morals.
But morals, ethics. Good. Now we're on the right path, yeah? Okay, excellent. Now, so that's materialism. We know how to deal with, inshallah, materialists. Okay. Quickly going to mention dualists. But this is going to move on to our next lesson, okay? Because the question we're going to ask in the next lesson is, what are minds? Now, put that question in your mind for now. Let it kind of ferment in your brain. We're going to come to it. What are minds? But dualists believe that there is a mind-body separation, okay? That basically, we have, the world is composed of minds and bodies. So you have minds and you have bodies. Does that make sense? That's what they believe the world is made up of. Okay? Now, idealists, and we said someone like René Descartes was a Jew. Idealists believe that actually all we have is minds. All we have is minds, and that really and truly, everything we perceive is a mental construct. Now, I know this is, some people say that there's a bit more to idealism than that, but generally speaking, that's how people identify idealism. Everything is a mental construct. That's what they say. And there's one of the main guys that Russell uses to reference. There's a guy called Bishop Berkeley. You can put his name down. He was an idealist. There's another Berkeley, George Berkeley, but Bishop Berkeley is usually referenced. Okay. So idealists believe that everything around us, we're in a matrix world. Okay. So how do we put it? We're in a matrix world. Okay, matrix. Okay, excellent. Now, these are the schools of thought. That will conclude. Okay, inshallah. That will conclude.
Idealism, you said idealism.
Yes, that is idealism. Idealism,
No,
matrix world.
dualism, what's dualism?
Dualism is you have your mind and you have your body. Two things.
So they are separate.
That's separate. Minds and bodies are separate.
And
you have idealists who believe that everything is a mental construct, everything is perceived, everything is in the brain. Some of them say that nothing actually physically exists. So they're the opposite of materialists.
So how can they agree with each other? Because if I'm an idealist, the other person...
Well, that's the point. They don't agree with each other.
Okay.
They disagree with each other. Okay. So that's the point, right? Sometimes you'll find...
So then how can they disagree with each other?
Well, they disagree with each other because they have different conceptions of how, how knowledge is acquired. Remember...
But then, for instance, if Ali is just a mental construct, so how can I, as an idealist, have a conversation with him and disagree or agree? Because he's just...
These are good questions. I'm not saying they're bad questions. They're good questions, but that's something we'll get into idealism a little bit further. We will discuss. These are three schools of thought. We just need to know what they're about. Okay, we'll put the flesh on the bone in lessons to come, inshallah. These are good questions. All right. Any questions at the end?
Really, that's it.
We've covered quite a lot there, yeah? Brothers and sisters, Jazakumullahu khairan for watching. Hopefully, you've benefited from this. Until next time, you can join us at Critical Thinking and make sure you like and subscribe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.